Welcome to Midnight Terrors, where spine-chilling tales come to life. If you're new here, make sure to hit that subscribe button and tap the bell for notifications. You don't want to miss a single story that'll keep you up at night. We're on a mission to grow, and your support is everything. Share these terrifying stories with your friends, family, and anyone who dares to listen. Thanks for being part of the journey. Let's begin. When I first leased the Quarry, I expected hard work and plenty of challenges, but nothing could have prepared me for the horrors I would uncover. The day I arrived, I was greeted by Mr. Tom, the former manager, who seemed pleasant enough. He was a little too friendly, his warmth almost uncomfortable, but I brushed it off. As he showed me around, he mentioned that the equipment was old but still running smoothly. Have you ever ignored your gut because you wanted to believe someone? I did, but it nearly cost me everything. However, when I tested the machinery myself, it became clear he'd exaggerated. The experts had assured me it was still a good deal, and since Tom said he lived nearby and could lend a hand anytime, I felt reassured. But that first impression of Tom lingered, unsettling and unnerving. Have you ever started something you thought was harmless, only to realize you'd been terribly deceived? As we began work, I decided to take a walk outside the quarry. Most of the area was eerily quiet, sealed off with fences that had warning signs, though they looked as if they'd been placed in a hurry. Curious, I tried to peer through the gaps, but the thick fog that seemed to cling to this area made it impossible to see beyond. I chalked it up to the quarry's remoteness and returned to the site. It was unnerving, but I told myself, probably nothing. After our second day of work, things took a sinister turn. My staff reported hearing distant screams late at night, shrill and desperate. We all tried to rationalize it. Maybe it was a stray animal, or even some strange machinery malfunction. But as the screams continued each night, everyone became more on edge. Every scream seemed to echo through the quarry, fading in and out, impossible to locate yet hauntingly close. I couldn't sleep. I kept hearing those wretched cries, echoing through the darkness. My team grew increasingly jumpy, some refusing to stay on site after dark. It was the fifth night when the horrifying realization dawned. I was watching the evening news in my trailer, trying to unwind, when a headline grabbed my attention. A girl had recently gone missing nearby. Her face flashed on the screen, a bright smile, innocent eyes, so full of life. But there was something in her eyes that seemed to linger in my mind. When I turned the TV off, her face was still imprinted in my thoughts. My heart sank as I made a chilling connection. The screams we'd been hearing each night could be connected to her disappearance. My hands trembled as I picked up the phone and called the police. When they arrived, 3 officers in tow, I led them to the direction where the screams had been coming from. We stood there in the eerie silence, waiting. Then, right on cue, the screams echoed once again, more agonizing than before. The officers looked as spooked as we were, but they took it seriously and set off in search of the source. After an hour, one officer radioed back. His voice was shaky. "We found something," he said, barely able to conceal his dread. I followed the officers to a concealed part of the quarry that had been hidden behind crumbling equipment and piles of debris. There, in a dark, narrow cave, we found it, a den of unspeakable horror. Rows of belongings were carefully arranged on makeshift shelves, trinkets, jewelry, scraps of clothing. The stench was overwhelming, and it didn't take long to realize why. There, piled in the shadows, were bodies, 34 in total. Victims who had vanished without a trace, faces frozen in eternal horror. I felt the bile rise in my throat, choking on the sheer magnitude of the scene before me. The surviving girl was found barely conscious, clutching an old locket. When the officers revived her, she whispered, "Tom, it was Tom." A chill ran down my spine as she spoke his name. Tom, the man who had been so warm, so welcoming, was not who he seemed. He had lived near the quarry, but not just for convenience. This place had been his hunting ground. The girl described how he'd lure his victims under the guise of friendship, kindness, and then led them to their deaths. As we processed the horror, the officers radioed for backup and went to apprehend him. But when they arrived at his house, it was empty. Tom was gone. Days passed, but Tom was never found. The authorities discovered trophies in his house, each one linked to a victim. Among them were items from over 100 missing persons, going back years, possibly decades. The newspapers splashed his face across every front page, but no one could trace his whereabouts. To this day, I wonder if Tom still lurks somewhere, hiding in the shadows, waiting for his next quarry. The once bustling quarry is silent now, closed off and abandoned, and I can't set foot near it. The screams have stopped, but they still haunt me, echoing in my nightmares. If you think you know someone, think again. Some secrets lie too deep to ever surface until it's too late. Brace yourself for the most terrifying content you've ever seen. If you think you can handle the fear, click on the video to my right or left. Each one is a heart-stopping nightmare waiting to unfold. These videos aren't just scary, they're guaranteed to haunt your dreams long after the screen goes dark. Viewer discretion is advised. Only the brave will survive the horrors within.